let's have a look or have a general overview of the tools that we will be using for this course. You'll see that we've got tools on the left hand side and we've got tools on the right hand side. I'm going to do a general overview as we will be using these tools in more detail later on. So first off, you'll see that if I hover over with my mouse over each tool, it gives you a name. So the first one we are going to be using is the selection tool. You'll see you have a letter in brackets, that is the shortcut. So if you press V on your keyboard, you will be selecting the selection tool. This tool is a selection tool, so you can see if I select, I can select everything on my artboard as a whole, whereby my direct selection tool, also the shortcut for that would be A on your keyboard. As you see, I press A on my keyboard and automatically I select the direct selection tool. This will select specific sections of a unit. We will obviously get to this in more detail a little bit later on. The other tool that we will be using is the pen tool, which the shortcut for that you can see is P. You can also see that there's a small little arrow beneath certain tools. If I press and hold my tool, you'll see that a little window pops up and I get various other tools that are related to the pen tool. If I move to the edge, you'll see that there's a small triangle and I release. I've been pressing and holding my mouse for the whole time, my left button. I move over and you'll see that this little menu pops out so that I can use it the whole time instead of just clicking and holding if I want to select these various tools. So I'm going to just close that. So first off, we will be using the pen tool. The pen tool is the tool that we will be drawing with. You can see that I am drawing something there and I am closing that. If I click and hold, I can add an anchor point tool. So you see there's a little plus. Now these little points, you'll see if I zoom in, these little points on each section where I've clicked with my pen tool is called an anchor. And if I add an anchor point, you can see on that specific path, I've added an anchor. I can obviously do certain things with anchors. There's a certain reason why I would like to add an anchor. I can also delete an anchor point. And this means that if an anchor point has been added, I can just click on there. You can see how there's a little minus on that tool. I will just click on that anchor and I can basically delete that little anchor point. We will get into more detail why I would be using something like that. The last one would be an anchor point tool, which is basically I've already added an anchor point and I want to create a gradient. I'm going to zoom out and I'm going to select my anchor point tool and I'm going to create a curve. You can see how I'm creating a curve. I'm going to click and hold and I'm creating a curve over there. Okay. When I'm finished with anything, when I'm finished, I press on the selection tool, which is the shortcut V, or you can just go to the selection tool over there and you press. This means that I am finished with the tool that I was using and I want the artboard to be open so that I can use something else. Otherwise, I'll be using the same tool over and over again. Okay, so the rest of the tools, we'll be using our type tool. You can see if I click and hold, my menu is going to pop up. There are various types of type tool, but I will only be using the normal type tool. You can see if I hover over my my canvas, I'm going to click and already I have a sample text that's going to go on there. I'm going to type whatever I want to and I'm able to select the text with clicking and dragging my mouse, or I can with Mac it's Command A, or with Windows it's Control A. I've got my text selected and I'm going to select everything all at once. you can see that I'm looking for my paragraph, my character. I can obviously change on the right hand side, I can change my font. So I've got a character window open. To open up a window, say character, I can go to window, and you can see that all of these options are available. If you don't find your character window, you can go here, you click on window, menu, and you go to see. I'm going to look for my, that's under type. So if you can't find it here, it's under type and character. And it'll pop up over here. With your text selected, you can select the type of font that you're looking for. I can select whether it's italic, or depending on the font that you selected, whether you can actually select bold, italic, all of those things. And then regular. So you can select your size of your font. So you can see that I'm on 12 points currently. If I want to change it to 24 points, I just select 24 points. I can select my leading, which is the space between, if you press enter, between the two lines, and then I can set the tracking, which is the space between the actual letters. So you can see if I select 75 or 200, that space between the two letters changes. Okay, so again, let's say I'm finished with my type tool. I'm going to press selection tool, which means that I am finished with my type tool. I can obviously move every single the whole section or the text as a whole with my selection tool. You'll see that I'm selecting my selection tool, and I'm going to drag it over to where I want to. If I want to delete it, I can just press backspace and it's going to delete the whole thing. Let's get into the selection tool and direct selection tool again while I've got this on my canvas. So you'll see that I've got various anchor points on each section where I've got a point there, all over there. So my selection tool, you can see that if I click, I'm going to select the whole item, whatever this is you want to call it. I'm going to select it as a whole. I can move the whole thing, right? If I select the direct selection tool, you can see how automatically it shows all of my anchor points. Now I can select each anchor point and actually do with that specific little section what I'd like. Whereby if I had the selection tool selected, I can select the whole thing. I can't select each anchor point separately. Okay, everybody with me. Now, the other tools that I'm going to be using, I'm going to skip over most of these. I'm going to go over to color or fill. Now you'll see that the shortcut for that on your keyboard would be X. You've got a big one and you've got a little one, which is stroke. So currently we don't have a fill, which means if you would state it like this, I took a pen and I have drawn only the outline of this little image. I have not taken my little color pencils and colored it in, right? So the fill is the coloring in, whereby the stroke is obviously just the outline. So currently I've got a white outline, which means that it technically is filled, but obviously because of my background is white, it just doesn't show. So if I want to change my fill, I have to use my selection tool. I have to select the item that I want to change the color, and I'm going to double click on my fill and select whichever color I like. So it gives me this little pop-up window, and I'm going to say okay. And you can see there, boom, my color changes. That's just for the fill. I'm going to click on the item again, and I want to change my outline. I'm going to select the stroke. So you can see where if I click on each, they jump forward. So depending on which one is in front, depending on which one is going to change, obviously. So if I double click on stroke, I can then change whatever I want to color. Okay, so if I zoom in, you can see that my stroke is yellow, like that, and my fill is red, like so. There are other ways of changing color. which we will get to at a later stage. So let's have a look at the tools on the right hand side. If I select, so if you want to change anything on your artboard or a specific little item, you need to select it first with the selection tool, not the direct selection tool. Okay, so I'm going to use the selection tool. I'm going to select this, whatever you want to call it, and I've got the appearance window open. So how do you get that? You go to window and you open up the appearance window. So you'll see that it gives me a stroke and gives me a fill. So precisely like we did on this side, it just shows me the properties of this item over here. I can change my stroke and fill color. We'll get to more detail later on. I can align certain objects. If I had 2 or 3 objects, I can align them with each other, or I can align them to the artboard. Obviously, as you learned in OBG, I mean, you can have white space, which means something, but obviously you'd like to have the whole item as big as possible and as centered as well. I can have stroke for my outline or my stroke like we have there. I'm going to change this to black so that we can actually see it again. So this is the thickness of the stroke. We can change the cap as well, which we will get to a little bit later on. And then we can change it to a dashed line. Now, as we know, when we've got a slice or we've got certain types of elements, we need to use a dashed line. Something like top stitching is obviously dashed line. So we would like to put in a dashed line then as a, so that it looks more real on our design. With regards to layers, we will get to layers in a little bit more detail. What you need to know about layers, this is, I'd like to explain it with regards to, let's say, winter clothing. Right, you've got your undergarments, you've got your t-shirt, whatever, and you've got your jacket on, you've got your pants or whatever. So layers work the same. I mean, inside you wear 2 layers, for instance, but if you go outside, you put a jacket and you put all of those things on. So let's say then you've got 3 layers of clothing on. Layers work the same, and I can have as many layers as I like. If I click over here, you can see that I've only got 2 layers. Technically 1, which I can maximize to see which is what's going on underneath. So when we use layers, it's basically when I put stuff underneath each other or on top of. Now this is good when we're designing so that we make our life easier, so that I don't just work on 1 layer. To give you an instance, I've worked with certain programs that we had over 1,000 layers. It makes it difficult if you don't know what is what, so you can obviously rename your layer, which is really cool as well. So we've spoken about character, how we have text, and we can change our font, we can change our font size, leading, and tracking. Same thing for paragraph. Basically, if you do a bit of typing there, you want to use that. So we've also spoken a little bit about color, where I can change my color here for my fill or my stroke. I can do a selection over here as well. You can see that I've got a little eyedropper over there that opens up if I want to change my color. And then I've got my swatches. So my swatches are the saved colors that I can use over and over again. You'll find that if I double click on my fill, to find the same color over again, it's quite difficult. So I can save a specific color to my swatches so that I can use that color over and over again. These are just the default colors that you can save. We've got a selection of colors. If I open up my swatch library, you can see that it's art, history, celebration, color books, color properties, earth, neutral, nature, whatever, all of those things. We'll get to that at a later stage. So that is general overview of the tools that we will be using in this course.